Thank you for joining us today on Overcomers, God Makes the Difference. And today our very special guest is Dr. Mumbi Mwangi, President and CEO of NGATHA International. And she's also a professor in the Women's Study Program at St. Cloud State University. She's also a minister, a speaker, and a writer. Mumbi, welcome today to our program.
Thank you very much for having me.
And I want to just talk about, you're a woman that's making a difference, not only in the United States, but in Kenya. Take us back to when you were growing up in rural Kenya and what that was like.
Thank you, Sherri. My life really started very, very humble beginnings. I grew up in Kenya, in one of the rural villages in Kenya. My mother was a primary school teacher. She had just a primary education, and then she trained to be a teacher. We didn't have much, but she had already tasted the fruit of education, and she wanted to give everything that she could to have her children become educated. So I watched my mother growing up, just, sacrificing everything that she had to make sure that we went to school.
What was it your mother said to you if you have an education?
My mother used to actually, all the time, just kind of push some statements, of encouragement. And she would say, I can't give you everything. I don't have anything much to give you, but I'll give you an education and you can become somebody. With an education, you can become somebody. And that is something that she kept saying over and over again. When I remember now, in retrospect, I thought my mother was just nagging. But, it's amazing to see that those little things that she was saying every day were words of encouragement that really made a difference in our lives.
She was also an entrepreneur, and you mentioned that she would lease land and grow vegetables and sell them.
Yeah, I wouldn't even call her entrepreneur. I think she was just doing what she needed to do to raise 4 children on her own and to look for supplemental income. Whatever she was earning was very little, so she needed to do something to supplement that income. And what she did was to lease land. She didn't have any land. She didn't own any land. So she leased land from other people, and she would grow crops. She would grow maize, or we call it corn, and beans. When we came back from school, because most of us were in boarding school, I would go, for example, into the market and sell whatever she had grown, the corn and the beans, so that we could have extra money to buy whatever we needed at home.
And you were telling me that a lot of the money that you earned from the growing the crops in the leased land, that your mother would take that money and save it for your education.
Mm-hmm. My mother saved every penny. She would rather we went, to bed hungry and save that money, because she really was interested in making sure that we were never sent away from school because of school fees or tuition. She really felt that is the sacrifice she needed to do. And then, of course, we had extra food. And now that she would grow crops and grow corn and beans, we had something to eat, but not always.
So your mother was looking after you, and she would help make your clothes, and sometimes you even went without shoes because the money your mom was saving was so important for her to have that money set aside for your education.
Yes, during her training to be a teacher, I don't know how many of you may know about the history of colonization. Kenya was colonized by the British. And the kind of education that was afforded to women was just, home economics or domestic science. That's what they called it. And women were taught how to knit or how to sew. And so my mother had those kind of skills when she was training as a teacher. And, she utilized those skills to really make sure that we had something warm to wear. She made wonderful cardigans or sweaters. And then she had a machine. And when I was growing up, I saw a sewing machine, which was something that was really out of the norm. And my mom would make some clothes for us. But what she couldn't afford is she couldn't afford to buy us shoes. So we had sweaters on us, we had nice clothes, but we didn't have shoes.
Talk about your grandfather and the influence he was on your life.
My grandfather on my mother's side was a pastor or a reverend in the Presbyterian Church of East Africa. My grandfather was one of the few people who embraced Christianity from the missionaries that went to Kenya. And, he actually pastored one of the churches there. And of course, he also did a lot of missionary work. He traveled throughout Kenya in a bicycle to preach the gospel. And I saw my grandfather, raise us and my parents also as Christians, and he was very, very prayerful. My grandfather used to write things on the Bible, and I was saying, I would tell him, why are you writing things on the Bible? And he would tell me that God speaks to him, and he makes notes of that. So I saw him really sacrificing and prayerful and blessing us. I remember one time my grandmother was saying a prayer when we had all met in a family meeting. And she would say, God, just bless these worms, WARMS, worms. And I said, goodness, do we have worms in the Bible? And it's true. I mean, there's something like that about the worms of, of Israel. So it was perfect and powerful for me to see my grandparents really very powerful Christians and instilling a lot of faith and love for God throughout our lives.
Stay tuned. We'll be right back with Dr. Mumbi Mwangi. We're back with Dr. Mumbi Mwangi, and she's been sharing with us about her life growing up in rural Kenya in a village there. And Mumbi, you were talking about your grandfather who was a Presbyterian minister, and I know because you're such a woman of faith, a godly woman, that had a great influence on your life, as well as your mother who was a teacher and really instilled in you that if you had education, you could accomplish anything you wanted in life. And even as far as saving money, you would go without shoes and go without food at times because your mother was so much about that education was important to you, and that had such a lasting effect on you. I know you shared with me that because of your mother's influence and her tenacity to go to school, you were able to attend the best schools in Kenya. Talk about that.
Yes, I and my three siblings, I have, my mother raised us, four of us. I have two sisters and a brother. Because of my mother's determination to see her children get an education, because she didn't have any more riches, she didn't have any more land to give to her children. So she invested in giving us an education. So all of us actually went to very good schools. I personally went to Alliance Girls High School, which is one of the best African high schools for girls in Kenya. And then later on, I went to Kenya High School, which is one of the high-cost schools in Kenya. Kenya High School used to be a European girls' school. It was, no African girl would go there. But I had a chance, because after independence, although all those schools were open to African girls, but you had to really perform very well to go to those schools. My sister right now also is a president of a university in Kenya. My brother is a professor there in one of the universities, and my other sister is a very renowned businesswoman. So really looking at what my mother did and sacrificed, it's amazing to see what came out of her sacrifice and the fact that she looks back to see what she had done. Last year I was in Kenya and she told me, Mumbi, I cannot even imagine, with all the struggles I went through, I cannot imagine that I was raising children to become international citizens. I mean, that is really God's blessing. So when you think about how far we have come and where we were, and to be able to see where we are today, it is nothing short of just a miracle from God.
When you were going to the university, what happened? You had a dream to come to the United States, and tell me about that process.
Yeah, I got my education, high school education, and the first degree, bachelor's of education in Kenya, and then I went back to do my master's when I got married and had children. So I was there for about 2 years. At one point, I really felt that there's more I could accomplish. And I started just praying and telling God, I believe that there are other doors that you can open for me. And one time, I just felt the urge to really want to look to see whether I can get opportunities to further my education in the U.S. I was teaching in one of the universities in Kenya even before I came. And I realized that most people are not, especially women, were not getting opportunities. to advance professionally. So I took it upon myself to look for opportunities. And I remember sharing with you that I had no idea how the US was. I had never traveled. I thought, that there were only maybe about 5 or 6 universities in the US. So I went to the American Embassy and I just walked in there and I said, I am interested in looking to see, what kind of schools and programs are there in the universities in America. So can you just give me a few ideas, and if you have any materials I can look at? And that person just looked at me and he said, do you want catalogs for the universities in the US? I said, yeah. And he opened this big room. I mean, we didn't have computers that time. I mean, that information was not in the computer. So he opened this big room and he told me, good luck. And in that room there were shelves and shelves and shelves of catalogs of universities in the US. I thought there were only about 3 or 4. So I spent actually 3 days just going there. I had no idea what I was doing, but I was just going there, picking up one catalog and going through and saying, maybe that's not something I want. But after 3 days, I had actually come up with about 10 universities, and I wrote down their addresses and everything else. I had no idea what kind of universities those ones were. I had no idea where they were in the US, but I just had faith. I just knew that is what I wanted to do. Going back home to my house, I had to look for money to be able to send the application materials to those universities. And I remember saving actually for 2 months to be able to afford $250 to send all the application to the universities in the US.
So what happened? There was a professor at Iowa State was going through the applications and he came across your application. What was it that caught his eye?
That was very interesting because when I was writing the applications to various universities, I had no idea again what I just wanted to be a teacher. That's what I've been all my time. So I wanted maybe a program where I can maybe do a PhD in education. But when I was writing those applications, something came to me. I was reading somewhere else and I saw the word qualitative research. This is a kind of a different kind of research, compared to the quantitative. So I wrote there that I would be interested in doing a qualitative research when I was admitted there. And when I came to Iowa State, of course, because that is the university that admitted me, I learned that when one of the professors was reading through the applications, she came across my application and she said she had been a teacher for maybe about 10 years and she has never seen any student actually applying to do qualitative research. And she was teaching that course. So she said, this is going to be my student. I have never seen anything like this. Do you know, she took my application and she was going to every department asking whether they have assistantship for me. Assistantship means that you get some work, that you work with professors and you get money, and that money helps you to pay your fees. And she went out there just looking for somebody to just offer me, assistantship. And she didn't know me. She had no idea who I was, but think about what God was doing and using her. And within that period of time, I got an assistantship. And I was able to come to the US in January. And all the assistantships are given actually in spring. So there are no assistantship left. But she was able to get one, and I was able to come.
That's remarkable.
Wonderful.
Stay tuned. We'll be right back with Dr. Mumbi Mwangi. We're back with Dr. Mumbi Mwangi. Mumbi, I just want to go back and talk a little bit more about that process that brought you to the United States. It's so amazing. It's just a miracle because you put on your application that you wanted to do qualitative research instead of quantitative. And you explained to me qualitative research is different because that's mainly talking with and speaking to experts. Mm-hmm. Quantitative is dealing with numbers. And so this professor read your application and said, this student is mine. I'm going to find an assistantship for her. And you were able to get one before the spring. Spring was usually when they were offered, but you got one in January, in the wintertime. Mm-hmm. And let's go back to when you were in Kenya, you went to your university coaches there and you let them know what you were going to be doing, and what did they tell you about the policy in place?
Yeah, so when I was actually going through all the application process and going to the embassy to look for information, nobody knew what I was going. I was just inspired and motivated to do that to advance myself. So nobody knew exactly what I was doing. But when I got the admission, Iowa State University admitted me, and they eventually got the admission and also the assistantship. But when I got the admission letter, I didn't get an assistantship that time. So I was praying and telling God, you cannot make it possible for me to get an admission in one of these universities, in America, and you do not provide the finances that I needed. I had a family I needed to take care of. And of course, I knew my salary at that time would not actually be able to take care of that. And there's no way I was going to be able to come up with the amount of money that the university was requesting me to have, more than $20,000, to be able to pay for my first semester. So I was praying, and we were praying with other women in my church, and we were just believing that God would provide. And at that point, my faith was so high. I believed that God can actually just put that money, just drop it in front of me. That is the kind of faith that I had, that God, you are the creator of heaven and earth. You can drop this money here so that I don't have to bother and to struggle. And from that point on, I decided I was not going to worry about it. That is the time, actually, when in retrospect, again, when I came to the US, that is the time when my professor was actually walking around looking for assistance. When I was praying in Kenya for God to drop that money, that is the time this professor was walking around literally looking for assistantship for me. I mean, it's amazing to be able to see what was happening just through prayer. So after a month or so, I got this letter, and I was told, Mumbi, you don't have to worry about anything. You have an assistantship. All what we want you to is to come to the US, and you must be here in January 5th of 1998. That time, I went to my university and I said, I have an admission to a university in America, and I need for you to give me permission to go. And somebody looked at that and said, oh my goodness, you have an admission from one of the universities in the USA. And I said, yes. And this person said, there is a university policy that if you get an admission to any university in the world, the university has the obligation to pay for your ticket to go to the university, and also give you a 4-year study leave with pay, 80% of your pay. So I could not believe it. So, so they gave me a letter. They released me for 4.5 years, and they gave me 80% of my pay, and the university paid for my airfare to the US. That really was a miracle. I mean, you pray for a miracle. You pray for God to drop money, in front of you, and He does exactly that. So I had no expenses, literally, coming to the US. Everything was paid for. And I came to the US in January 1998 to pursue my PhD in education.
And I believe God even made that policy just for you. That was in place.
I believe, because I had actually taught in that university for about 5 years. I never actually knew that there was anything like that. So I'm not too sure it was there. I don't believe God even created that policy.
That's amazing.
Mm-hmm.
So you went to Iowa State and you got your doctorate there, and you taught 2 years there, and then you transferred to St. Cloud University, where you are currently teaching as a professor.
Yes.
And then God laid it on your heart to give back to Kenya. And so tell me about that.
Yes, I always knew that God has blessed us as a family and me personally. And I felt that where I've gotten right now is not because of my works or the fact that I've worked very hard. It's actually God's grace. And I knew that I wanted to give back to my country and to my village. I was raised in a very humble kind of environment, and having actually had a opportunity to come to the US and even get higher education, I wanted to give back. I had no idea what I wanted, and I remember one time I was praying and I felt the Spirit of God asking me, what do you have in your hands? Like how Moses was being asked, what do you have in your hands? And I said, God, the only thing I have here is just this certificate of the fact that I have a PhD. I have nothing else. I mean, I don't have it invested. I don't have any money. From then on, God, was instilling upon me the fact that I need to use what I have to be able to give back to my country. And I had no idea. But eventually, as I continued praying, it was very clear that I needed to start a not-for-profit organization that is going to actually take care of women and children in rural Africa. In 2005, December, I just drove down to the state of Minnesota Secretary of State, and I registered NGATHA International, NGATHA, which means National and Global Association for Thrift and Humanitarian Aid. And I just felt that is really what I was doing. But at the same time also, I needed to have something that really gives the strength of the mission and the vision that I had. And I went back to the Bible and I looked at the Proverbs 31st of this woman who has, God has blessed, and yet she uses her own resources to help people who are disadvantaged in her community. And NGATHA, N-G-A-T-H-A, in my language, Kikuyu language, means a virtuous woman. So I have two meanings and two very strong bases of my organization: the National and Global Association for Thrift and Humanitarian Aid, but at the same time also means NGATHA. That name means NGATHA in my language, which means actually a virtuous woman. And that really is what gives us the vision and gives my organization the vision to really give back to the women and children in rural Africa.
Mumbi, thank you so much for sharing with us about what you're doing with NGATHA International. And I know that you're helping so many orphans over there and women to be able to have an income to support themselves and their family. Recently, you shared with me that the Shackley organization is doing something wonderful to help you raise funds for your organization. Tell us about the website where people can go to find out more about what you're doing in ministry and how they can get involved.
Wonderful. Thank you for having me. So one of the things that I would want to mention here is that having the organization, the not-for-profit organization, and doing some fundraising, we have not had enough money to really support the orphanage that I started in 2007. We were able to get about 60 children in the village whose parents had died of HIV/AIDS, and I actually converted my own home in Africa to make it an orphanage where these children could come and get food, clothing, and a place to stay. And eventually, actually, when we brought those children, we decided we also needed to give them an education, and we started a school. The orphanage and the school now has been running for about 7 years now, and we have succeeded in taking students, our children, orphans. These are orphans who came to us having, no place to live. And we have turned their lives around. 3 of our children from the NGATHA International Orphanage have gone to the best high schools in Kenya based on their performance. And we don't have much facility. We don't have, most of the classes that we have don't even have the floor. I mean, they are dirt floors. But what we are giving these children is something that is lasting. In the last 2 years or so, the amount of money that has been coming in has been, dropping because of the economy. And I wanted to find out what I could do as the president of NGATHA International to think of something that can be bringing this money or the money that we need and make it much more sustainable. About 2 months ago, I went to Canada and I was able to meet the CEO of the Shackley Corporation. So we are sending all our supporters into the website and be able to support the orphanage and be able to create this sustainable income.
And tell us what your website is.
People can get information about my organization and the work that we do from our website. Again, our website is www.NGATHA International, that is NGATHA international.org. So if you can go to those websites, you'll be able to see, what we are doing and be able to support this wonderful, wonderful work that we are doing for children and women in Africa.
Mumbi, thank you so much for being a guest on the program today and sharing with everybody what God has done in your life and the marvelous things that He has done for you in provision, in education, and just prospering you and the wonderful faith and the walk that you have with the Lord. I just love it. So thank you so much for being here today.
Thank you, Sherri, for giving me this opportunity. It's a wonderful, wonderful opportunity. And thank you for the good work that you are doing and your call to be able to preach the gospel through this kind of work. Thank you.
Thank you.